Yo, thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. It's another day. It's 3:33 p.m. Pacific time. It's May 22nd, 2026. Hope you're having a good day. Let's begin. DNC tries to move past autopsy debacle as Martin faces calls to resign as chair. In New York, one day after the Democratic National Committee released its botched autopsy report on the 2024 election, party leaders continued limping toward the midterm elections, even as other prominent Democrats demanded major changes at the very top of the organization. Ken Martin, the committee's chair, faced new calls to resign from elected officials and Democratic operatives, who say he mismanaged a report originally intended to be a comprehensive examination of the party's failures and a potential roadmap for its future. Martin kept the document under wraps for months, stoking speculation about its contents, only to release it this week and insist it was too flawed and to be useful anyway. There doesn't seem to be a plan to turn things around, and the clock is ticking. November is literally around the corner, Representative Mark Veazey, a Democrat from Texas, told Semaphore. I believe it's time for him to move on. He should resign, Representative Seth Moulton, Democrat from Massachusetts, said to Axios. And in a radio interview, Representative Mark Pocan, a Democrat from Wisconsin, said he agreed with a caller saying Martin should be replaced. But Martin maintains support from many state party leaders who have benefited from a steady stream of funding from national headquarters since he took over. In a conversation with DNC staff on Thursday, Martin apologized for his handling of the autopsy and said he was determined to continue leading the organization. This was a major mistake. I own it, and now it's time for us to move forward at the DNC. And I hope that y'all move forward with me, Martin said, according to a person with knowledge of the call who was not authorized to disclose a private conversation. Martin, a little-known Minnesota operative before emerging last year as the head of the National Party's formal political machine, has already faced criticism for dismal fundraising and inability to inspire confidence among his party's unruly membership. However, there was no sign that a serious alternative was emerging. The Associated Press contacted a half-dozen Democratic presidential prospects to gauge their support for Martin, and all of them declined to weigh in. The inter-party feud represented an extraordinary distraction for the Democratic Party, showing signs of momentum in its fight to break President Donald Trump's grip on power in Washington. Democrats hope to regain majorities in the U.S. House and U.S. Senate in the November midterms, and Republicans could be vulnerable because of Trump's low approval ratings, dissatisfaction over the war in Iran, and lingering economic frustration. Martin's allies across the country lashed out at Democrats who were fueling the election year drama, dismissing them as unhappy consultants and supporters of Martin's previous rivals for DNC leadership. Kansas Democratic Party Chair Gina Reapes described calls for the first-term chair to step down as ridiculous and dangerous. It is dangerous for Democrats to be playing politics with our leadership when these elections are 5.5 months away, she said. The American people are counting on us. Janet Klebe of Nebraska, who leads her state party and the DNC's Association of State Committees, said the fighting is nuts. I haven't had a single chair come to me saying, I think Ken needs to resign, she said. Ken was elected by the DNC members to do a 4-year term, and he has not violated any of our rules or bylaws where there would be a two-thirds vote, right? Because that's what it would take to remove the chair. Klebe added, these reports are such distraction. The long-awaited post-election autopsy said Kamala Harris wrote off rural America during the 2024 presidential campaign and failed to attack Trump with sufficient negative firepower, among other key findings. Martin shared the 192-page report only after facing intense Internal pressure from Democratic operatives. He originally promised to release the autopsy even before taking over the committee last year, only to keep it under wraps because he worried it would interfere with Democrats' focus on the November midterms. I didn't want to create a distraction, Martin wrote on Substack. Ironically, in doing so, I ended up creating an even bigger distraction, and for that, I sincerely apologize. Although the autopsy criticizes Democrats' focus on identity politics, it sidesteps some of the most controversial elements of the 2024 campaign. The report does not address former President Joe Biden's decisions to seek re-election, the rushed selection of Harris to replace him after he dropped out, or the party's acrimonious divide over the war in Gaza.